Hi, everyone, and welcome back. This is another episode of the Someday is Today mini-series, a part of the Casually Profound series on the Size Eyes podcast, a part of Easy Mode Coaching LLC, and I guess when I'm involved, also Adam Kamak Content LLC. I'm Adam Kamak. Cy, of course, Cy Vossam is with me here. We are in beautiful Pensacola, Florida, on the Gulf Coast, the Florida Panhandle. Admiral Mason Park is the site for this podcast, and we are walking around while we record this podcast. This is the fourth episode that we've recorded in 3 days in terms of actual calendar time when recording, which probably means that this will be spread out over about 4 or 5 months when
no
publishing.
faith in me. No faith.
Or me either, for that matter. But for those of you following along, it's part of our goal to record in all 50 states. This is state number 10. So prior to this trip, we had recorded together in Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Missouri, and Kansas. On this trip, we have been fortunate enough to add Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and now Florida. So, Cy, thank you. Thank you for helping make this happen, for this collaboration, for joining me, and for this conversation we're about to have. Thank you.
I'm excited for it. State number 10. Drove into Pensacola this afternoon from Mobile and enjoying the beautiful weather out here. So I'm ready to dig in and answer some trivia questions at some point throughout this conversation.
Of course, and very nice weather. And those who are following along will notice that we are wearing the same clothes as we were when we recorded the Mobile episode. It is the same day. We discussed the possibility of doing as Alex Trebek used to do on Jeopardy, go and change the clothes while recording on the same day to make it look like a different day. We decided not to follow in Alex's footsteps that are enormous, way too big for any person to fill. I thought, though, while we're in Pensacola and working on this collaboration together, that the topic of friendship might be a good one for us to explore. We talked about this a little bit in passing here and there in some of the previous episodes. I know when we recorded in Fort Mill, South Carolina, that you talked about this a little bit. But I thought that this would be a good topic for us to flesh out in greater detail over the course of this episode. But before we do that,
please,
we will start out with some trivia, something that we started in our episode earlier today in Mobile, trivia based on the state in which we are recording. So let's go ahead and do some Florida trivia along the way.
Let's do it.
All right, so we'll start out with a few questions. We'll come back to this throughout the episode. In which year did Florida become a state?
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Okay, so it's 18.
So far, you're correct.
37.
45.
Oh, I was going to guess 41 or 37. But...
27th state, just before my home state of Texas, coming in at 28.
Wait, when? 1845?
Yeah, so Florida
Okay.
was March of 1845.
Okay.
Texas, depending on which event you count, it would either fall under December 1845 or moving into early 1846.
Okay.
February 1846. All right, so 1845 for Florida. Next question for you. When we were in Alabama, we discussed that the state of Alabama has the official nickname of the Yellowhammer State, the informal nickname, unofficial nickname of the Heart of Dixie. Texas is the Lone Star State. Kansas is the Sunflower State. So states have nicknames. What's the nickname for Florida?
The Sunshine State.
That is correct. And
also, Orange State? I guess I don't know the state of oranges. Is that
possible.
Okay.
I don't know that I've heard that one myself, but that might be, it's possible, certainly possible as an alternate nickname. I mean, the Orange Bowl, right, being in Miami or the Miami area, Miami Gardens now. Orange groves being a part of Florida's economy, a part of the agriculture industry here.
Yeah.
And the next trivia question for you. The city that claims to be the oldest city in the U.S. is in Florida. What is it?
St. Augustine in 1516.
1565,
Oh,
but it
so
is
that's
St.
right. Sorry, that's
Augustine.
right.
Who initially settled there?
Juan Ponce de Leon,
Which European group?
Spain.
The Spanish. That is correct. All right, so we'll have more Florida trivia as we move through this.
Yes.
But I thought that, as I said, friendship would be a good topic for us to discuss. And there are a lot of different directions that I want to take this. But let's just start out with some definitions, with some basic concepts around this. So what to you does friendship mean? What are some of the key characteristics of friendship, some of the key components of friendship? What makes someone a good friend? And what would make someone not a friend or no longer a friend?
Yeah. Good question. So, friendship. We're friends.
Yes.
I guess so. We began not as friends per se. We were.
Well, I think that could be said for any pair of people who eventually become friends.
That's true.
Right? They're not necessarily friends upon meeting.
Yeah. So we were friends. I guess we became friends through you being an RA and I was a resident at the dorm.
Right, when we were in college.
You're right. Hashtag Creekside Cavaliers.
Yes.
So from that standpoint, like for me, like common activities.
Right.
So, there's friends of virtue, friends of utility, and friends of entertainment. So there's those three levels that I think Aristotle or someone prominent long ago.
Since you mentioned those three levels, can you talk about what those are?
Yeah, I don't necessarily
like a very brief definition.
Yeah, I don't necessarily categorize people like this, but
sure,
this is the starting off point for this conversation. So friends of, I think I kind of think of them as concentric circles. So let's say friends of entertainment on the furthest out circle. So for that one, I would say, these are friends who are kind of there by like let's say you're going out with them or you play board games with them or things that you enjoy spending time with just because, like they're in the same city. Maybe you met them through work, you met them through your partner, whatever it is. You're just kind of there, like you enjoy each other's company, mostly from and just like, hey, they're around to have a good time, right? You may not have like as deep conversations with them, but they're kind of there. They're not the closest of friends necessarily, but they're, at that phase in your life, those are your friend circle, part of it. So I think I've experienced this level of friendship, college, Atlanta, Charlotte, Kansas City. And friends of utility, these are the people, I guess there's an overlap here of like friends through work, friends in a relationship, stuff like that. And then friends of virtue, I think this is the deepest level where I guess that relationship, like your partner, your like people who you have, like you trust the most, who you open up the most to, who you spend the most time with, and maybe your parents or your siblings are included in this as we pass a small lizard.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, is a friend, does a friend have to be someone that you are not related to, or can someone you're related to count as a friend as well?
Of course. I don't think they're de facto in as a friend, but I think they can
enter friend status.
Yeah, I would say so. Because like I think growing up, I didn't view my parents as friends.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of adult children would consider their parents friends now.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I think about. That's a starting point for friendship. I guess what relates. I guess what about you?
You said entertainment, utility, and what was the other?
Virtue.
Virtue.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with friendships right now.
Yeah.
What about you in terms of where?
Yeah, I would say.
Where you see friendships.
I would say a key characteristic, or a few key characteristics. One would be having mutual interests, mutual activities that you enjoy, that you share. Uh, One would be some sort of mutual liking, mutual affection, mutual bond, mutual fondness, right? And obviously, I don't mean this in a romantic context, right? Just thinking highly of each other, mutually thinking highly of the other person. So not just having shared activities or enjoying their company, but having a high opinion, holding them in high regard. I think there's also, and maybe this is something, friendships can certainly change over time. So when you're 7 or 8, maybe this isn't as important, although maybe this is important. It just takes different forms. Maybe it's just as important. It just takes different forms. But I think there's a certain dependability, reliability, kind of an implied being there for each other, having their back, right? And this is something that we can explore a little bit more. But if someone is a friend, right, then it would follow that if you need them, they're there. That doesn't mean that you go mooch. That doesn't mean that you abuse that privilege. That doesn't mean that you take advantage of them. But like they're going to stand up for you if they're in a position to do so, or if you ask them to do so. They're gonna say nice things about you. They're not going to say bad things behind your back. There's a certain level of decorum and respect and a certain responsibility, to be there for the other person.
Yeah.
That's a part of friendship. Certain level of empathy, incumbent in any friendship. I think there's also, and there are certain degrees to this one, but at some level there has to be a recognition that you can be honest and say what you think and say what's on your mind. Now, there are degrees to this. I'm not saying that, if someone feels uncomfortable sharing every single political thought that enters their mind with someone, that doesn't disqualify that other person from being their friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some people where maybe we'd feel more comfortable taking controversial positions with than others, right? There are some people we might feel more comfortable discussing particularly personal topics, particularly deep topics, right? When a relative dies, we can head over here. When a relative dies, there might be some friends that we feel like we want to lean on, that we need in that moment. There might be other friends where the relationship is just not that way. Those are still friends. But there does have to be some ability to talk about personal topics. There has to be some ability to talk about yourself, and an ability to do it in a way that's a lot deeper than just like if you run into someone at a party or a banquet or some sort of gathering and have the little 5-minute small talk of what you've been up to and how are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm good, right? Like a friendship, in order for it to be a friendship, at least in part, there needs to be some ability to move beyond just the simple pleasantries of small talk and actually have some honesty and some discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean every single time that someone is hanging out with friends that they need to be going into their deepest, darkest secrets. But there should be some room to talk about things that go a little bit below the surface level. Some room to talk about things beyond how you would talk about it with a colleague at work that you don't have a personal relationship, or with someone who you run into at a party or at a grocery store or in the community or in the neighborhood that you kind of sort of know. You know their name, you know a little bit about them, but you don't know them on a real personal level.
Sure.
There has to be some room for that. So those are all things that are a part of friendship. Before you respond and before I ask a follow-up question on this topic, let's do some more Florida trivia, shall we?
Yes.
All right.
As you're asking, we'll show.
Yes. Walking along the beautiful waterfront, the Gulf Coast here in Pensacola, Escambia County. So beautiful Pensacola, Florida here.
We should do more of these walking tours.
We should. This is fun. This is fun. All right. So let's do a few Florida trivia questions here,
All right,
shall
let's
we?
do it.
All right.
At the sanctuary.
The sanctuary, yes. All right. So I'm sure you know who the current governor of Florida is, right? Ron DeSantis. All right, say it. Do the impression.
Ron DeSanctimonious.
All right, so Ron DeSantis is the current governor, right? And when he ran in 2022, he won pretty easily. He nearly won in 2018. And there's this perception nationally that Florida is becoming a redder state. The Republicans are winning more often than they used to, and that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Florida used to be the quintessential swing state, right? Like we think about the 2000 election, Bush v. Gore, where it's coming down to 537 votes or whatever it was in the state of Florida, and Supreme Court cases and multiple recounts. Obama won Florida 2008 and 2012. Now Florida is generally not included in the swing state column. But for governor, Democrats have had, even though the races have generally been pretty close, except for 2022, Democrats have had a hard time winning in Florida, even while Florida was the quintessential battleground at the presidential level.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the question. When was the last year in which a Democrat won the election for governor of Florida?
I have like no bearings on this.
I know. Notice how I didn't ask you for the name. I just assumed that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. We'll go 1980.
1994.
Oh.
So the year I was born, 1994,
Mm-hmm.
Jeb Bush was the Republican nominee.
Low energy Jeb.
Jeb Bush. Low energy Jeb Bush, before the exclamation point, was the Republican nominee.
Mm-hmm.
Same night that his brother George W. Bush was the Republican nominee for governor of Texas.
Huh.
George W. Bush won a fairly close race, beating the incumbent, the sitting governor, Democrat Ann Richards. He got reelected governor of Texas in 98, went on to become president of the United States for 2 terms. Jeb Bush lost his first race in 1994 narrowly to Lawton Chiles, Democrat, who then would die during that term that he served. Then Jeb would get elected in 98 and 2002. Parlay that into a very failed run for president of the United States in 2016. So 1994 was the last time a Democrat ran for governor of Florida. So 98, 02, 06, 10, 14, 18, 22. So that's what, 7 straight Republican victories in what, for much of that time period, is considered to be the quintessential purple swing state.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Next. How many presidents? So like when we recorded in Alabama, we said that no Alabamian had ever been president.
Yeah.
And that the highest was William R. King being vice president. How many presidents have considered Florida to be their home state?
Well, so definitely Bush. Sorry, he was in Texas.
Right.
Both
H.W. and W. claimed
Sorry.
Texas, and Jeb never got elected president. He would have claimed Florida.
Well, it's just too popular of a state. We'll go with 4.
The answer is 1. Who is the 1?
Do I know them?
Of course.
Wait.
When he was elected, his home state was listed as New York, but he later re-registered to be a voter from Florida.
Reagan?
Donald Trump.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought
so both in 2020 and in this election in 2024, Florida is officially his home state.
I didn't know
He
that.
re-registered his primary residence to be Mar-a-Lago. 2016, It was in New York at Trump Tower, but then he re-registered to Florida later on.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I'm shook.
You're shook.
Yes, I thought he was in New York.
All right. Next question.
All right.
If you didn't get the first 2, you're probably not going to get this one.
Well, for all the listeners who've gotten the first 2.
Yes. All right. So this person was a founder of Standard Oil. He was a railroad magnate, and he was one of the founders of the cities of Miami and Palm Beach.
Who is this man?
Yes. Who is this man?
Railroad. Oh.
I'll be shocked if you get this.
Railroad. Bessemer.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Henry Flagler. Henry Flagler.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I've seen the name once.
Right. Well, there's a small university, small college in Florida named for him. Henry Flagler. His name will be relevant for my next trivia question, and we'll get to in a little bit here.
Oh boy.
Coming back to this concept of friendship. So anything that you want to add on characteristics of friendship, of what makes someone a good friend, and then let's delve into some of the expectations, responsibilities that come with friendship.
Yeah, I think one of the characteristics that came up for me was trust. I think that's inherent in almost any relationship, and it's almost like every level of the depth of how well you know someone, the trust is almost correlated with that progression. So it's like someone you know at work or passing, you have like a baseline trust in them, but not, you probably don't trust them with your life, or like if you have a few calls to make and your life is in danger, like those are probably not the people you call first, right? So like a baseline level of trust, and there's probably a level of professional trust that you have in people,
right,
with whom you work. Then there's,
but I think when lacking a personal element, it's not.
Let's go this way.
Then it's no longer through the lens of a friendship. Right, but trust is certainly an important characteristic of any sort of relationship, friendship or otherwise.
Yeah. Actually, there's so many cars coming. Let's just go back to that loop.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, so I think, so like the closer you get, so like, and then you have your close friends that you hang out with, childhood friends that you've known for years and years. Then you have, your like inner circle. I mean, closest friends are part of that, perhaps, family and close friends and relatives, depending on how close you are with relatives. So like, and then you're like, and then probably the most person that you trust the most is probably your romantic partner, or one would think, right? So it's just, for me, I think trust is what I've seen as this factor that's driven, whether it's business, driven the depth of a relationship, romantic or otherwise. And they have the saying that business moves at the speed of relationships, and relationships move at the speed of trust. So, and not just business. So this is like any friendship and relationship in general. So I think and I've seen that to be true. So that's why I come to trust as probably the single biggest factor in the depth and breadth of a friendship.
Yeah. So before I ask my next question, which will not be trivia, and then we'll return to the trivia. But there's an Alan Jackson song I'm quite fond of, "The Older I Get," and there's a line in there: "The older I get, the fewer friends I have, but the ones I've got have always got my back." And I think that's, it speaks to this trust component, to this a willingness for friends to stand up for you, to help you, to fight for you, this reliability, dependability, a lot of these different things that we've talked about, this notion that the friendships that endure and the friendships that in many ways are worth it in the long run, that really last and that really are kind of cornerstone relationships, cornerstone friendships throughout your life, they're ones where they've got your back. Maybe you're not talking to them every day. Maybe you go a few years without actually seeing them in person, living in different states, different cities, different countries, whatever the case may be, right? Maybe it's a deal where there are a couple months here and there where you don't talk, right? You get busy with your lives. But when you need them, they're there. And when you need them, not only are they there, but you know that you can trust them, and you know that you don't have to wonder if they're there. It's automatic. When there's a storm that hits, you know that they can take you in. When you don't have power, you know that you can go and stay with them. When you have a loved one who's ill or who passes, you know that if your emotions and your grieving process or dealing with these difficult times call for it, that you can lean on that person, and that they're not going to feel inconvenienced by it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to feel imposed upon. They're going to want to help and support, because it's a relationship of people who have mutual respect, mutual fondness, mutual admiration, and who have this understanding of being there for each other. And this whole concept of having your back seems to be in a lot of ways at the core of friendships, of real friendships, of lasting friendships.
Mm-hmm.
So, I gave a longer response than I expected. So maybe we will do some Florida trivia before I ask my follow-up.
Sure.
So let's do a couple of Florida
Yeah,
trivia
but also
questions.
let's get to the lighting over there with the memorial, and then let's
Sounds
stay
good.
there
Okay,
as
sounds
long
good.
as we finish.
Sounds good. All right. So, all right. I mentioned Henry Flagler before. So railroad magnate, among other things. And so he built a railroad, or was involved in the development of a railroad heading south from the Florida mainland across the Florida Keys, reaching all the way to Key West.
Okay.
Later on, the highway was built. As automobile traffic became far more common, highway was built more or less adjacent to the Flagler Railroad. This highway that originates in Key West, mile 0, mile 1 are in Key West, goes all the way up to Fort Kent, Maine, on the U.S.-Canadian border. This is not an interstate highway, it's a U.S. highway. What number does this U.S. highway bear? This is the longest north-south road in the U.S.
Okay, so I was going to guess...
What number does the highway bear?
I was originally going to guess 95, but that's an interstate.
That is an interstate, and that does not go to the Keys.
Okay. So I'm going to guess... Well, it's north-south, so probably odd. So I'm going to guess 99.
So the U.S. highway numbering system is a little different than the interstate highway numbering system, but it is a number that indicates a specialness to this route. Like it's
1.
1 is correct.
Okay.
U.S. Highway 1.
So wait, so what's the Pacific Highway 1? Is that interstate?
I believe that's a California state highway. Like when you talk
okay.
about Highway 1 in California, I believe that's a California state highway designation that goes along the Pacific coast.
Gotcha. So that's okay.
Yeah, there is no interstate 1, by the way.
Okay.
The lowest numbered interstate is 2, which is in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas.
Okay.
All right. When that's a newer interstate. It used to be Interstate 4, which goes through Tampa, Orlando, Daytona Beach, so also in Florida. All right. A couple more questions here. So we mentioned Key West there. We're talking about U.S. Highway 1 and Henry Flagler's railroad. Key West is very well known for having the home of a very prominent author. There's several prominent authors with homes there, but one in particular who's famous for having a lot of cats at his house with all sorts of strange numbers of toes. This is someone who ended up dying in Idaho. Famous for works such as The Sun Also Rises, Old Man and the Sea, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Who is this author?
I don't know that. I don't know about the toes and cats piece.
Yes.
That is Ernest Hemingway.
That is correct. Yes, he has these cats that just... Because his house is also, I think it is some sort of like nature preserve type status.
Okay.
In addition to the historical site status. And the cats will have like 17 toes or 19 toes or like all kinds of unusual numbers.
I see.
All right, next. The Great American Race takes place in Florida. This is a NASCAR race. What is the race called?
The Daytona 500.
That is correct.
Yes.
All right, so back to the conversation about friendship. What would be some things that you feel would be inbounds to ask of friends, and what are some things that you think would be out of bounds? And where those boundaries are drawn say about the nature of the relationship?
I feel like that's a very specific, like, friend by friend case. Um, I think it's built on the again. I want going back to the trust here. I think it's built on. It's almost like bricks, where all right, each level of trust that you unlock is almost that brick that was placed there is because of something previously that gained some sort of trust one way or the other. It's like, so you opened up first and you shared your vulnerability. And so then, like, maybe that's a huge brick that was placed in this foundation of a relationship. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Maybe, so like vulnerability, maybe you shared something like early on in your life that caused you great shame, right? So then you're sharing something that's very open, and if they're receptive to it and understanding and acknowledging of it, then that's also a great brick placed in this foundation of a relationship. So what things can you share in a relationship, right? Rephrase the question.
So what things would you say are within bounds to ask of a friend, and what things are out of bounds?
Honestly, if you like with your partner, for example, I don't know if there's anything that is out of bounds. And
right, so I guess I'm talking about non-romantic relationships.
Okay.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, even then, if you like, it depends on how close you are to them. So if you're like the closest of friends, then I don't know if there's anything that's like really out of bounds. And maybe there's a level of like, hey, like working with a coach or a therapist that then becomes a friend, that like, hey, like I'm going to open up my deepest, darkest secrets and share what's on my mind at all times and throughout the week, whatever it is. I think that's an appropriate place for that.
So
we're curious to hear where that question's coming from.
Yeah, so I'll ask about a few examples. So how about topics of discussion? Are there topics of discussion that should not be broached in a friendship? Does it diminish a friendship or mean that it's not a friendship if certain topics of discussion can't be broached?
I don't think it's an indictment on the friendship if you talk about some things with some friends and you don't talk about those same things with other friends. I don't think that relationship means anything more or less than the other one. We're in the land of gators, so I think we should be good, but
yes,
you never know.
Go on.
Yeah, like I think that was it.
What about money? Like, are there circumstances where it is appropriate to ask a friend for money, to not ask a friend for money, to not pay your end if you're doing things that involve sharing bills, if you're in a tough spot financially and you need a little help? Like, what are there any kind of rules or guidelines when handling the money situation with a friend?
It doesn't like naturally come up with a lot of friends, but I think there's like for the most friendships I've found, there's like an implicit thing. And then for like, hey, it's agreed that, hey, like we're gonna, if we're going out and eating food or like going to a movie or whatever, it's like, hey, we're splitting stuff.
Right.
But like if you're straight up asking for money, I think it's, if you feel comfortable with like lending that money, I feel like you should be good with lending that money, and then if you lose it, you should be fine still keeping that relationship. If lending that $100 or $1,000, however much it is going to cost you that friendship, then like I would talk about it more with that friend. Yeah.
What about living in the same place with a friend? What are there rules, guidelines, points at which that can go too far?
Living in the same place, yeah, I think like there's an expectation setting stage up front. Like, hey, we're entering into like a literal contract when you sign the lease. Like, hey, we're gonna live together for 6 months, a year, whatever, however long it is. And then after that, or during that phase, you're like, hey, there's probably gonna be some kinks you work out. Who does the chores?
Right.
Like, hey, some small quirks and irks that you may have about the other person.
You mentioned like a contract or a lease, though. Like, do things have to be put in writing here?
I don't think so. Like, I mean, again, I think I feel like the main thing here is like the autonomy of the friendship. Like, I think the theme that I'm, I guess, finding out is like every friendship is going to be different. There's no rules set in a dictionary or in a guidelines, like for any two friends or any group of friends, right? So it's like you kind of have to take the ownership and autonomy of this and be like, hey, you're recognizing these things, and for some friends it may be good to have things written out, and for other friends it may make sense to have nothing. And like just in like a trip, for example, some people are the heaviest planners and all the itinerary is set, versus some are, let's go with the flow, and I know where I'm staying, but outside of that, let's see, right? And even that may not be set, right? So I think like understand, it's almost like a love language in a sense. Like, what's the friend language of like, hey, from a expectation standpoint, let's get
almost like
set.
Even if it's not written down, almost like what are the terms of the friendship? Like what is there kind of a mutual recognition and agreement of being acceptable behavior in the friendship, acceptable asks in the friendship?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, but that's not something that we've talked about,
no,
right? Because like, we've never had a conversation
right.
of like, hey, let's set expectations.
Right. I feel like there are some things that are maybe just implicitly accepted,
Sure.
right, as acceptable. Maybe we haven't, figured out what's implicitly unacceptable.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe we have through discussions about other relationships where we are not discussing anyone by name or anything like that, but like generally not discussing people that you would know or that I would know anyways in these sorts of contexts. But maybe when complaining about frustrations with interactions with other people, I guess sometimes some of those things can pop up. But I don't know. Then does that make you a bad friend to that other person, right? If you're having frustrations with that other person that then you're mentioning, even if you're not mentioning that person by name, but just referencing it in a conversation with another friend.
Well, I think if you're having that conversation with them, like they're annoying you or whatever,
right?
Instead of, in addition to, not behind their back, but in addition to other people, you'd bring it up to them face up.
Right.
I think that's like, it's normal to talk about, hey, like I'm having these troubles and issues. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I think in the past I have I've fallen into that trap of trying to make these decisions on my own. And usually looking back, my judgment at the time is not the best.
It is generally better to have people you can bounce ideas off of.
Right, exactly.
And to take advantage of having that.
Right. And so like sometimes I've made decisions on my own that I regret. Sometimes I made decisions on my own that I'm glad I made a decision, even with other people's input, I still made the same choice. So it goes both ways. But in the end, I think it's overall, if it's almost a level of mistrust or distrust that is implicit when you don't share something, that when people expect you to share in the decision-making process. For example, like in a partnership, or even in like close friendship, depending on how close you are, even if you're like living with them, whatever it is, you're almost expected to share like medium to larger scale decisions on a daily, weekly basis. And that's something I'm still getting used to myself. And so like actually sharing, hey, like this is what I'm thinking. Hey, these are the dates that I'm traveling. And so that was not something I was used to doing, where I just made decisions on my own and like executed. And so like time from decision made to executed was like, or idea to execution was very quick, versus now it's maybe takes a little bit longer, but it's more involved and more engaged and more inclusive, and sacrificing, sure, a little bit of speed with that, but I think I'm gaining a lot more emotional intelligence, a lot more empathy as a result of doing that. And so like I've experienced that with my parents, with my partner, etc.
All right, let's do some trivia,
Yes.
and then we'll have a couple more things to wrap up with.
Yes.
So, in which city is the Florida State Fair held?
So it's not always a capital city, because the Dallas is in that's the Texas State
generally
Fair.
not the capital city.
Yeah. Well, so the largest city, I think, is it technically Jacksonville by population?
By city limit population is Jacksonville, yes.
I don't think they would have it there though. Maybe more. I'm gonna say Orlando already has a big. We'll say Orlando.
Tampa.
That was mine.
Tampa is the correct answer there.
Yeah.
Next, the city with the largest Cuban population in the U.S. is in Florida. What is that city?
Miami.
All right.
Nice.
The city with the second largest Cuban population is New York.
Huh. Okay.
The city with the third largest Cuban population is also in Florida. What is that city?
We'll go with Orlando.
Tampa. And then my home city of Houston would be fourth on that list.
Orlando's going to be one of these guys.
All right, next. During Major League Baseball spring training, they have some teams in Arizona competing in the Cactus League.
Yes.
Some teams go to Florida. What is the name of the spring training league in Florida?
Tampa.
Grapefruit League.
Oh, I was a Tampa. Where is it?
Numerous cities.
Oh, okay.
So like the Yankees.
That was in Tampa. Okay.
Well, the Yankees are in Tampa during spring training.
Okay.
Right? Like the Astros are, and the Nationals are in Palm Beach.
Okay.
I think the Blue Jays are in Dunedin. There are a few different cities that are involved. Yeah. I think the Phillies are in Clearwater, and the Pirates in Bradenton. Maybe there are a handful of cities that are used throughout the state.
I see.
All right. So.
0 for 3.
Yeah. Well, but you got Miami actually, so 1 for 4.
Oh, okay. That's right.
So on the subject of friendship, going back to friendship, what would you say are some things that can lead to the end of a friendship, or circumstances under which it might make sense to end a friendship, or ways that you may outgrow a friendship?
I think a natural one is distance. It may not end it per se, but it maybe creates some distance, and you just see them physically less frequently, most likely. I've experienced that, and it's a great thing from getting new friends in the cities that you move to. But then it also means, almost like for me, every new city that I go to, it just means more people to catch up with that are not in the same city that I'm in now. At least with every new city that I move to. So, and like, that's not a bad thing. It just means I have like a national and global community of people. So like, that's pretty cool. But it takes work. You can't just like, I've fallen into the trap of out of sight, out of mind. Where like, oh, like we're not in the same city. Let's like, it's okay to be distant. And so I've realized that, hey, like let's put some time on our calendars. Let's reach out every couple months, few months, whatever it is, whatever feels right, and chat, and like, let's catch up, and not just a 5-minute text and happy birthday, but use that as a way to, hey, let's put something on the calendar and actually connect for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. So distance is one thing that can create separation. And I think going back to trust, I think whatever act of distrust that someone has by, by action or maybe inaction, right? Like, oh, you didn't tell me, or you didn't do this, or, you did this. So I think those are a couple of things that can create that distance in a friendship. Trust, distance, or I guess distrust, distance. And then maybe this falls under one of these, but like, I guess like with romantic relationships, just like some level of frustration that like can be, rectified. So it's like like we were talking about money earlier, right?
Right.
Um, you know, if you disagree, and then you guys can't like uh, can't agree or agree to disagree and then continue to move on, then maybe that's a point of, hey, I think it's time to say goodbye, at least for now, and then let time do its thing and see how you're feeling in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever that feels right, and send a message or something. So again, I think case by case basis, but I think distance, distrust, are a couple of the main things there. What about you?
Yeah. Um, so I guess let me ask this, and then I'll provide my answer.
Yeah.
Uh, is the maintaining a relationship, do you feel like it needs to be kind of a 50-50 split in responsibilities? Is it healthy for a relationship to only continue because one person makes the effort? Is that a real friendship? If one person is always the one making the effort and the other person is never leading, taking the initiative, it's always one person putting in the work to string it along.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think if it's like that all the time, then I think there's an issue. If it's like goes in waves, it's like, hey, like it's a busy part of life right now for me for whatever reason. Maybe they had a kid, or maybe they're just moving, and circumstances like that. I think it's that understanding and empathy should probably be there for the other
Yeah.
person who's not experiencing that. But then if it's like that the entire time of a relationship, of a friendship, then I think it's worth having a conversation with them, uh, or naturally let things distance, and then seeing, like, well, if I really mean that much to them, like they would reach out,
Right.
and like,
They're not doing it.
right,
Says something about the friendship, the relationship, and about that.
right. Um, so yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. So I asked that because this is something that's been on my mind a lot over the last year. As I left my teaching job and I'm recalibrating, revisiting, reevaluating a lot of different parts of my life. And there are a lot of people who I've considered to be friends for a long time, but where I guess deep down, I recognize that if I never message them ever again, the relationship would end that moment. Like, I'm not going to
Right.
hear from them. And in some of these cases, it takes numerous messages to get responses, to get things scheduled. There are excuses. And I guess some of this is, the way I am is I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So maybe I'm coming up with reasons and excuses in my mind for why they're doing that. I also genuinely care about people who I get to know and who I've considered to be friends or considered to be mentors or mentees or whatever the case may be. People who I work with and have gotten to know in a certain capacity with a certain level of closeness, and there's genuine care and concern. And that doesn't end with the distance factor. That doesn't end with them having romantic partners or families or not being in the same building or the same neighborhood as them. Right? The care and concern is still real and genuine on my part, and maybe it is on their part as well. But I've come around over the last several months to the idea that these sorts of friendships where it just feels like I'm the only person putting in effort and I'm stringing it along, and the only reason it continues is because I continue to reach out, not always getting responses when reaching out. That maybe some of those should be in the past. And maybe those are friendships that served me in other parts of my life when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, when I was in high school, whatever the case may be. But maybe those are not real friendships with mutual admiration, mutual respect, trust, reliability, dependability, a lot of these topics, a lot of these characteristics that we've talked about already. If one person is always putting in the effort and one person seems to care way more than the other person, then maybe that's not a friendship that's worth keeping, or at least that requires a break and you can revisit it down the road.
Sure.
Now, you mentioned the birthday thing. I've got tons of birthdays on my calendar, right? Like we're probably looking at, I don't know, 150 birthdays or something, right? Lots of birthdays. And, whenever that birthday comes up, I reach out to that person. Yes, sometimes it's only, all that's going to happen is happy birthday, how are you? They respond and it kind of ends there. But a lot of the time when that happens, it's a reason where for some of these people, like you and I talk all the time, so this is less of a concern. But for some of these relationships where there's not that frequent level of contact, or maybe the relationship has kind of died, it's an opportunity to revive the relationship. It's an opportunity to revisit that relationship. And it's a way to check up on them, let them know that I care about them, and give that relationship a chance to grow, and in some cases be restored back to where it was. Obviously one text on the birthday doesn't accomplish that, but it can set the wheels in motion theoretically. If that birthday text doesn't happen, nothing's going to set the wheels in motion, which of course also means that not that I cast aspersions on people who don't message me on my birthday, because not everyone recognizes the importance of this sort of thing to me.
Right.
But there is kind of this understanding in my brain, anyways. If I'm remembering your birthday, not that it's a requirement that they remember my birthday, but it's certainly valued and appreciated when other people remember my birthday. Right. So like it's not a negative for people who don't, but it's certainly a positive for people who do, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Right. Like you're not losing points, but you do gain points. But I feel like there should be kind of maybe not a pure 50-50 component. I'm fine putting in more work in some cases. But it shouldn't be like a 98-2 split. It shouldn't be that the only reason the relationship persists is because one person drags it along. And that's something that maybe, out of genuine care and concern for other people, maybe out of a comfort zone that comes with kind of the status quo in relationships, maybe that's something that maybe I hadn't recognized a year or two ago. But I think there is something real with that. And time spent on friendships that are unreciprocated, where there's not a mutual component to it, is time that is not spent on trying to get to know other people better, building new friendships, meeting new people that become friendships, taking acquaintances into the friendship territory, right? It's time not spent growing other relationships, where maybe that reciprocity and that mutual affection and mutual interest and mutual respect and appreciation will come sooner and more readily and in a more meaningful way, because you're building the relationship now in the present with the person that you and they are, with the people that you and they are now at this stage in your life, whatever that stage is, as opposed to what was built in previous stages, and relationships that are more about the future than about things that happened well in the past.
Right. Yeah, something to add, and then let's do trivia.
Yeah.
And then let's wrap up.
Yes.
So, oh no, I'm blanking on what I was.
All right. So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
And you can provide a short answer on this one. But what do you think is something? Obviously, every relationship is different and every person is different. But for someone who's watching this, who's considering the idea of friendship, the concept of friendship, maybe a little bit differently after this conversation, what's something that you would recommend or that you would throw out there as an idea that they might want to incorporate to try to be a better friend to people that they're friends with, or that they might find value in with trying to maintain and keep friendships that they have now, to make those long-lasting, enduring, in some cases, hopefully lifelong friendships?
A simple one that I've started this year is like goes to the birthday thing, actually. Just like every quarter, so I've done it for 3 quarters now this year, is put in the people's birthdays on your calendar and just make it an annual recurring event.
Right. And when I said I have like 150 birthdays on my calendar,
yeah,
they're annual recurring events.
Right. And so like previously it was at the whim of if I remembered and or if I checked Facebook that day, versus like, all right, it's like I'm going through my friends on Facebook and just my memory, for every 3 months, and be like, okay, oh yeah, it's like this is a person's birthday that I would like actually want to text and wish, rather than just
and at this point I've put so many birthdays in it. Like if I'm having a casual conversation with someone and they'll mention, oh yeah, my just in passing, that their birthday is like a week from Tuesday or something, then my first thought is, okay, I need to put that in my calendar before I forget.
Right. So that's easy, like low hanging fruit. Um, Another one is writing out the people that I actually want to contact and stay in touch with. Like going through your Facebook friends, Instagram friends, like whatever other social media, your phone contacts, email contact list, and just like going through like, hey, these are the people that I want to stay in touch with on some level of regular basis, and like going through that list maybe once a week. Like, oh, like you're not gonna like don't bash it all, like go through the entire 100 people and like do it in 1 week. Then you're like, scheduling wise, that is not the best. But like, hey, like reach out to 3, 5 people in a week, and they're like, hey, how's your next couple of weeks looking to schedule some time? Or like, hey, or maybe just call them right now, call them right then and there, just to catch up for a bit. Like you're free. So like going through that actual list of people who you actually want to catch up with. Because I did a more in-depth version of that, of like how often I wanted to catch up with them. That's probably a little too much, but it was good to at least go through that exercise once. And I'm continually adding to that list mentally and physically as well. Yeah, so those are the couple things I would say. And then the point that I thought about earlier was, there's this thing in Google. I don't know if they still do it, but there was this like, hey, like the number of projects that they have, or the types of projects that are there. How many are new? How many are old? And like, what's the breakdown of that? Right. So I think they had like 70, let's say 70, 80% of it was like things that like existing business, like we're going to double down or keep going and like do the things that like, our bread and butter. Right. So like, we know this works, keep churning it out. And then there was like the 20, 30%, which is, hey, this is the kind of the new thing that we're going to be testing out, like making some iterations on the bread and butter, right? So I think that breakdown is like, could be used in this context of, hey, like spend that energy and time with those existing friendships and continue building that trust and experiences with them, because those are the people that you've known the longest / have the most trust with. But then also in your city, virtually, whatever, through meetup groups, through apps, through whatever it is, meeting people at coffee shops, reach out to them, strike conversations, meet new people, and see where those go. So like having that balance of new and old is, I think, is a recipe for some level of relationship happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess
yeah.
Yeah. So I guess three things I would say here. One is the importance of communication. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate in the office. Communicate with your friends. Communicate with your romantic partner. Communicate with your kids. Communicate with your parents. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Right. So important. And in the context of a friendship, that means, if they text, you respond. If they call, you call back. If they text and they want to hang out and it's a particularly busy time, then you tell them, hey, the next month or so, I'm going to be pretty bogged down with things. Like, let's revisit this. Let's say that we're in August, recording in August right now, right? So maybe something like, hey, the next month is going to be pretty busy, but I'll message you late September, early October, and we'll figure something out then. And then you go over to your calendar.
Yeah.
And on September 25th or October 2nd or whatever the day is, you put like 3 reminders on there that you're going to follow up with this person.
Yeah.
Right? Because that comes back to the trust thing. If you tell someone that you're going to do something and then you don't, it's okay to have that happen. We all will do that at various times. But when it becomes a trend, when it becomes a regular thing, then the relationship really suffers. And especially when it's something that's as easy as just making a note so that you message them when you tell them you're going to message them. Like there's no excuse not to do that. That is so easy, so simple. So make sure you respond, and even if you're busy, make sure that you're setting a reminder, making a note to follow up, and then follow up. That's very easy. This isn't like committing to traveling to the other side of the world with a friend and then that follows through, or committing to read a 1,200-page novel with a friend and that falls through. Right? Like this is not something that involves a tremendous time commitment. Right? This is remembering to message them when you're less busy and then getting something arranged. So that's one thing is communication. Another thing, and for items 2 and 3, I'm going to reference a couple people that I seem to be mentioning a lot on our podcast episodes nowadays. So I guess they've had way more of an influence on me than I realized, maybe. For number 2, I mentioned Michael Malice. So I heard him say this, author, celebrity, ghostwriter Michael Malice. Heard him say this a while back. But the idea that for people that you're friends with, that are important to you, that really matter to you, tell them that. And maybe you don't need to go through and spend hours and hours on day one doing everyone all at once, but try to fit that in over the course of the next several weeks or whatever, next several months. Shoot someone a text, give them a call, and tell them, hey, I really appreciate that you've done all these things for me. I really appreciate our friendship. I really appreciate that you're there for me. Thank you for being such an awesome. Some people might find that a little weird when you do it. It's going to hit, and it's going to matter. It's going to be important. And I know whenever I tell people that, it matters. I'm sure I've said that to you several times. If I haven't, thank you for being such a great friend. But I know it resonates with them. It resonates with me when people say things of some variation of that to me.
Mm-hmm.
It matters. It really does. And then the third thing I would say, and I'm going to mention Gary Vaynerchuk, who I keep mentioning in these episodes as well, but get out your phone and find someone that maybe you were close to a while ago that you have fallen out of touch with, that you are maybe there's a birthday text or something, but there hasn't been like a meaningful connection or conversation in several years, but there was a time when you were close to them and cared about them, and give them a call. Reach out to them, tell them, hey, even though we haven't talked that much over the years, I was just thinking about you, and I want to let you know, that you matter, that I care about you, and I'd love to have a chat sometime, catch up, try to build up this relationship again. And there may be some friendships where there was such an egregious error, such an egregious problem that arose that it's not so easy to do that, or that might take some more time to recover and repair. But in a lot of cases, relationships where it just falls away because of job, family, geographic distance, it can easily be done in those sorts of circumstances to rekindle that sort of relationship that's kind of died out and bring it back. And in a lot of cases, that person who you've lost touch with, it will mean something to them that you're remembering them and that you're taking the time and the effort to reach out to them. Because there aren't, for a lot of people, there aren't that many people that are going to reach out to them and ask them how they're doing and tell them that they're cared about and tell them that there's someone who wants to help them, who's there for them, who wants to build connection, relationship. Even people that seem to have a lot of friends, in a lot of cases, those relationships are pretty shallow, right?
I think it's like the friends of entertainment and utility.
Right. There aren't that many people in most cases that reach out. And it always means something to me when someone who maybe I don't talk to every day or every week or every month, but when it pops up in my phone, that person saying, hey, I saw on the news there was a storm in Houston, just want to make sure you and your family are okay. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, we haven't talked for a while, let's go grab a coffee, let's go get lunch, let's have a Zoom call, catch up.
Yeah.
It resonates, it means something. So that would be those would be the three things. The importance of communication, responding, following up, telling the people that you're close to, that you're really good friends with, that you appreciate that friendship, and reaching out to people you haven't talked to for a while to try to reconnect and let them know that you care about them. So, on that note, let's maybe do a couple trivia questions and then we'll wrap up with this.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to do some trivia questions that I think you might have a higher hit rate on.
Let's see. All right.
All right. The main campus of the University of Florida is located in which city?
Gainesville, Florida.
That is correct.
Let's go.
The only NFL team to go undefeated in the Super Bowl era for an entire season and postseason is a Florida-based team. What is that team?
The 1972 Miami Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins is correct. Yeah, you got the year right as well.
Yeah.
Look at that. Yes. The Miami Dolphins is the correct answer there. All right, let's see. Let's maybe do let's maybe do one more. How many times have the Orlando Magic made the NBA Finals?
So they made it in 09 with Dwight Howard and company.
They did.
I want to say they made it once with Shaq. They maybe or may not have.
So
I'm going to say 2.
2 is correct.
Let's go. Was I right?
So they made it in 09 with Dwight Howard and company. They lost to Kobe, Gasol, and the Lakers in 5 games. And they made it in 95 with Shaq and Penny Hardaway and Nick Anderson. And they lost to Hakeem Olajuwon,
the Dream,
Clyde Drexler, the Rockets in a sweep in 4 games.
Let's go.
Amazing series. Shaq hates it because Kenny runs his mouth about this all the time. But as a Houstonian, even though I was 1-year-old at the time, love it. Amazing series. Amazing.
You've seen it with your eyes.
Amazing series. Amazing series. Now, let's do one more question.
All right.
What is the capital of the state of Florida?
Tallahassee.
That is correct. Tallahassee. And which time zone are they in?
Tallahassee's in the central time zone. Is in the Eastern time
Eastern time zone. Where we are in Pensacola is in the central time zone.
I don't know where the time zone.
Tallahassee, the time zone boundary is like between Tallahassee and Panama City. So Tallahassee is in the Eastern time zone. Okay. Well,
I was going to say Eastern, and then I was like, oh, is it a trick question? I was like, oh, let me say Central.
Okay, so then maybe we need to do one more since that wasn't a correct response. All right, let's see. The all-time leading rusher in NFL history went to college at the University of Florida. Who is he?
Emmitt Smith.
That is correct.
Let's go.
Emmitt Smith. All right, so we're coming to the end of this episode. We've looked at a whole bunch of different topics related to friendship and related to the state of Florida. What has been your favorite part? We'll follow in the Michael Malice trajectory again here. Favorite part or favorite takeaway of this episode, and then favorite thing about being here in Pensacola in the state of Florida?
Yeah, I think for me, realizing that trust is the biggest piece of it. And maybe I thought about it before, but not in a conversation before. And not, I was like, oh, like kind of everything relates, for me in my mind, relates back to trust. Whether it's the respect, loyalty, like whatever aspect of a relationship and friendship, it kind of goes back to trust for me. And so seeing that pattern across a lot of our, conversations and topics within friendship, it's kind of reinforcing that everything is like a game of trust. And what was the second one?
Favorite part of being in Pensacola and the state of Florida?
Honestly, yeah, the weather. Seeing the beaches. Haven't had too much time to explore here, but walked around a little bit. Gonna get some dinner. Maybe tomorrow we'll see stuff on the drive to the airport to PNS. But
for you, yeah, well,
that's for me.
I will also be driving you to the airport, but then I will be driving back to Houston, not flying.
Yeah, so sights and sounds of Florida.
Yeah.
I'm being in the central time zone part of Florida.
That's right. Central time zone part of Florida.
Which Tallahassee is not in.
Right.
Yeah.
So Escambia County, the first county on Interstate 10 in Florida after leaving Alabama.
What about you?
Yeah, so, trust is certainly a word that makes a lot of sense for friendship. That maybe wasn't the first word that came to mind, but as was the case with you, that's definitely going to take away the importance of trust. I've enjoyed the opportunity to talk about this with friendships and look at different aspects and different characteristics of strong friendships, what makes something a friendship. So I think this has been a valuable exercise, certainly a lot of food for thought in terms of the concept of friendship in general, and in terms of some relationships and friendships in my own life, as I'm sure is probably the case for you. I'm sure as you're talking, there are probably some specific people you had in mind, or some specific people that after this conversation, you're a little more anxious to pull out your phone and send them a message, or reconnect, or whatever the case may be, as is the case for me. As far as being in Pensacola, being in Florida, I've spent a decent amount of time in some other parts of Florida. I lived a couple summers in Tampa, in the Tampa area. So I've seen Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, that whole area quite a bit, down to Fort Myers. But even though the Florida Panhandle is the part of Florida that's the closest to Texas, haven't really done anything in the Florida Panhandle besides driving through on the highway. So it's nice to get out, stretch my legs, walk around Pensacola, after I drive you to the airport tomorrow, you might see the beach a little bit more.
Good.
I have to check this on a map, but after years of hearing about Destin, with that only maybe an hour away, I might pop over there and walk around for half an hour, see what the fuss is all about.
What's the thing that the tour guide told you that you've been repeating to me, especially on the USS Alabama today?
Well, yes. Years ago, my parents and I were in Israel when I was in high school taking a tour, and the tour guide, very nice guy, very knowledgeable. But when we would go to different sites, this was a tour that was geared towards North Americans, the people from the U.S. or Canada, would frequently say, "You are not every day in this place." So I am not every day in this place. So I need to embrace that, take advantage.
There you go.
So having the opportunity to explore the Florida Panhandle, Pensacola, a little bit more, or really for the first time, for that matter, beyond the interstate, that's been a nice part of this as well. So, Sai, thank you. I think we did a good job with this topic. Did a good job with discussing the state of Florida, weaving that in for state number 10. And we don't really know where state number 11 will be yet. So
if you have any recommendations, if we haven't decided by then or recorded by when this drops, reach out to us. If you're especially a friend, reach out to one of us, reach out to me or Adam, and let us know which state we should record it. And if you're in a different state that we haven't recorded in yet, and you want to be part of this conversation at some point, we're open.
Let us know. We could have another person or a couple more people.
We'll see.
You
never know.
Absolutely.
Casually Profound is not limited to 2.
Yeah, but again, my website's placesandprofiles.com for the Places and Profiles website, for the Places and Profiles podcast. AdamCamac.com. My last name is C-A-M-A-C. It's a palindrome. AdamCamac.com. By the time this is published, presumably, the Adam Camac Show will have launched. I'll have some stuff about events on there and some career coaching and other offerings and articles and blog posts available. So Adam Camac, C-A-M, as in Michigan, AC.com, and placesandprofiles.com. Or Sai has SaiVasam.com, S-A-I-V-A-S-A-M, Sai Vasam, M as in Missouri.
All right, let's end this.
.com. And thank you all for joining us on the Someday Is Today sub-series of the Casually Profound series of the Sai's Eyes podcast here in Florida for state number 10. So thank you all so much.
All right, peace.